giving people 5 minutes, and I know.
Maybe more of them will come in.
So I'm just gonna, yeah, yeah. So I'm just gonna welcome everyone to the CCOF at large chapter. Today is Wednesday, June 7th, and we got a bunch of speakers today, and I'm gonna hand it over to Joe to introduce our guest speaker.
Great, thanks, Andrea. It is my honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Jennifer Tucker. Since 2018, she's been the Deputy Administrator for the National Organic Program. Prior to that, from 2011 to 2018, she was the Associate Deputy Administrator for the National Organic Program. Dr. Tucker earned her bachelor's degree in environmental science from Wesleyan University, her master's in management from Purdue, and her PhD in science and technology studies from Virginia Tech. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Tucker to talk to us about organic enforcement updates.
Thank you so much for having me today. It is great to talk to both folks who are on the screen with us, but also folks who might be watching the recording, and nice to have both forums. So I'm going to confirm that you can see the slides. I don't do it in the presentation mode because I do like to see you guys when I'm presenting, so I feel like I'm talking to somebody, but also so I can keep an eye on the chat. So for folks who are live with us, feel free to ask questions in chat. I do tend to keep an eye on that as I am presenting. And so here to give an enforcement update. I think so many of us are familiar with the organic public-private partnership, but I do like to start most presentations with that, of just reminding folks of what the enforcement structure is in organic oversight, that we have the National Organic Program overseeing our third-party certifiers like CCOF and others who are the ones that certify organic farms and businesses literally around the world who sell to retailers and consumers. There's an incredibly healthy feedback loop through back to the program itself, but also through the National Organic Standards Board, which is an important part of our advisory work. One of, I think, the beneficial changes that relates to enforcement is the fact that the National Organic Standards Board, the CACS, Certification, Accreditation, and Compliance Subcommittee, has gotten much more involved in oversight issues over the last 4 or 5 years, giving us good recommendations related to compliance and enforcement. And those have led to some changes in the program and were important in writing the Strengthening Organic Enforcement final rule, which published recently. So it is a healthy part of the feedback system, even when we're talking about enforcement systems. We also have organic trade partners. These are other governments that oversee the organic programs in their own country. Those programs are either equivalent or they're recognized, meaning they have comparable standards to us. That's equivalence, or recognition, meaning that they administer our regulations, but do all of the activities involved in that. And so organic sales have continued to grow over time, 66 billion in the United States last year. And we are above 27,000 operations in the United States and above 45,000 worldwide. Our goal areas for this year are to grow and develop the organic sector through transition initiatives, technical assistance. That was a new goal area for us this year. We have traditionally really been focused on oversight and regulation. With the introduction of the Organic Transition Initiative, we've expanded our work to include the Transition to Organic Partnership Program, which we are administering through National Organic Program. So that has added a goal for us this year. We we are still committed to developing and implementing organic standards, we protect organic integrity in two very different ways. And so there are actually two different goal areas. One is through building the systems, the organic control systems, and then the other is through the robust enforcement actions that we take. And so it's a good reminder to remember all the different elements of when we're talking about global organic control systems. What are we actually talking about? And so we're talking about the standards, we're talking about accreditation. So that's our oversight of the certifiers. We're talking about certification, where certifiers oversee organic farms and businesses. And it's really good to remember that an awful lot of the enforcement work that happens in organic is actually done by certifiers. That is such an important part of the system. So it's not just NOP doing this work, it is certifiers. And so, occasionally I get the question of, well, certifiers, their clients are paying them, right? Operations are their clients are paying them. They're not going to take action against their own clients. And the response is, yeah, they do. And we keep an eye on that. It does turn out that over the last 2 years, it's actually been an average of one a day, where certifiers, based on the ongoing statistics, when you look at the number of certified operations and you look at the number of suspensions and revocations, it ends up being about one a day, that certifiers are kicking out one operation per day. Across the system. So I do believe the system works. And when we get appeals from operations that appeal those, certifiers have generally given businesses as much notice and as much opportunity to improve as they responsibly can, while not being unfair and creating an unfair competitive advantage. So certifiers need to take action against the operation, because it's not fair to the businesses that are playing by the rules to not take action. And so we see it happening, and it happens well. We do take enforcement action at the program level as well. All of those are taken to protect, again, compliant businesses. Trade systems, we have a whole group here now that is using data to drive and inform our oversight work. And again, our trade arrangements are important not only for facilitating global growth, but for protecting it. So the kinds of approaches we take for compliance and enforcement, I'm happy to kind of get into more details here. I don't have that many slides, so I want to kind of give the high level overview, and then I'm happy to kind of answer any specific questions you might have on any of these areas. We do believe that training and outreach helps build capabilities that protects the market. If you can teach somebody to comply, that's way better than getting them on the back end when they're not compliant. And so we do focus on education, both of operations, but also certifiers to build capabilities. We just recently have launched new training in the Learning Center on mass balance activities, advanced traceback techniques and such like that. We do surveillance now at the operation level if there's a high risk operation, a certifier level, sector level, and even country level. So we recently had a team in India for a month looking at certifiers and operations, working across India and looking at specific supply chains. We get about 400 complaints per year at the program. We take resulting actions. We still have, I'll show you a graph in a minute that shows the distribution of those complaints. We are still seeing that more than half of our complaints tend to be of operations that are calling themselves organic without certification, that are selling more than the exemption level of 5,000. So that's the most common complaint we get. Certifier directives are becoming increasingly important in really focusing work both in the sectors and countries that are needed. And so that may involve testing, but it may also involve unannounced inspections in certain areas. We're also doing a random sampling of imports to identify the ports of highest risk, so we can do more concentrated import oversight through testing as well. And again, we are kicking out about an operation per day over time, those that are not able to or refuse to come into compliance. We now have much stronger legal protections under our trademark. So we did get our seal trademarked. It took us a few months to figure out what that actually meant and what we could do with it. Customs and Border Protection was very helpful in that they helped us identify what they can do if once we register our trademark in their systems, Custom and Border Protection. So we have done that. And there are a number of shipments that have already been blocked. So that was activated in the last few months. They've already been blocking shipments to the United States that were labeled as USDA organic, but weren't actually certified. And that's great because not only we've talked for years about the fact that we don't have stop sale or hold sale authority. Turns out with a trademark protection, we do. It's not our authority, it is Custom and Border Protection's authority. So that is a bit of a game changer for us. And I don't think we have fully harnessed the capabilities of that, but I think we will once we have the import certificates required under strengthening organic enforcement. It will give us a much more systematic way of doing this. But we have customs agents across the United States that are looking for organic seal and protections on our behalf. There are also a lot of fees associated with that. If Customs and Border Protection holds your product at the border, even if you're done nothing wrong, you're going to be paying for the storage fees while they do their investigation. So if you don't have all your paperwork in order, they're going to hold it, and you have to pay for that if you're an importer or exporter. So, and then we have seen domestic cases where there have been sentences involving prison time. We're working now that we have more people, we're able to do more outreach to other enforcement groups to help us. Office of Inspector General has been a good partner for us, as have other agencies within USDA, like Foreign Ag Service in particular, and APHIS, Animal Plant Health Inspection Service. Customs and Border Protection, again, I sing their praises for all the work they've done to help us. And Department of Justice gets involved through our Office of Inspector General for high profile or fraud, extensive fraud cases. Here are some examples of kind of where we are this fiscal year. We have already this fiscal year closed almost 300 complaint cases, investigations. We have more than 20 global active supply chain surveillance projects. There's been a lot of growth, for example, in export coming out of Africa, and we have been hearing some concerns out of that market. And so we have a number of active surveillance where we are surveilling entire supply chains. Other parts of the world are also a focus with that. Country level audit in India. I mentioned that we had a team over there for a month working, visiting both certifiers and operations. We continue our program of unannounced visits to U.S. livestock operations that began in 2018-19 as really looking at the pasture rule. It's now moved more extensively into traceability, traceability itself, traceability through the supply chain. You know, we recently did the origin of livestock rule, which closed a very important loophole, but there are a lot of other parts of the origin of livestock rule that were intact already that weren't being effectively implemented. And so that's been a big focus over the past year. We've also, based on that work, have seen some very significant appeals cases upholding livestock enforcement actions. These can, very long appeals that really lay out what the team found. And I think it's a good instruction for how to look for fraud in a market. So we tried to describe it in a lot of detail so certifiers and operations can understand how people are cheating the system or can cheat the system. We do collect civil penalties from uncertified operations selling as organic, and they stop selling as organic, which is as important. I already mentioned the imports blocked under trademark authority protection, and ongoing support for Inspector General and Department of Justice investigations. So right now, as of the end of March, we had about 426 open complaints. And so this is a look at the different types of complaints that we have. You'll see that more than half of them are complaints about uncertified operations that are selling as organic. We do have residue cases, and then we have sort of the broad category of fraud, which is sort certainly an uncertified operation representing as organic is fraudulent, but when we classify it as a fraud case, it's one of those more significant cases where it can be a certified operation that might be laundering product. So they are certified, they've got a certificate, but they sell non-organic product as organic off that certificate. And that is a risk area for us, that too often we have certifiers who are not necessarily looking at the non-organic part of the business, and they should and have the right to do so. In terms of cases closed, these figures are as of the end of March. Since then, we've closed another 80 plus cases. Many of our cases about uncertified operations result in voluntary compliance, meaning they go get themselves certified. That for some of these operations, they still didn't understand they needed to be certified and that there is a federal program. And so they get into the pipeline. And if once they get certified, we do consider that voluntary compliance. If they have sold product, that sometimes we do have them pay a civil penalty to clear that, because it's not fair to the people who have been certified all along. But voluntary compliance can also mean, for example, label updates, that the labels were wrong and they fixed them. Sometimes we'll post fraudulent certificates. We'll levy civil penalties, often for uncertified operations or suspended operations that have been selling as organic. The number of incoming complaints continues to increase each year, and so we're going to continue to monitor that. Can't have a presentation without just very briefly mentioning the update of the strengthening organic final rule, that we have updated the rules in ways that will protect organic integrity and continue to bolster confidence. So increasing the number of certified operations, requiring import certificates, which I think will help us in a lot of areas, including in trademark protection, strengthening record keeping, supply chain traceability, and strengthening our oversight of certifiers. Just as a reminder, if there are operations and supply chains that need to get themselves certified to align with the rules, they do need to get as far through certification as possible by that deadline. And I'm starting to get calls of, well, I haven't quite applied yet. What if I can't finish it by March? And my answer to them is, you got to get yourself in the pipeline. You need to, pull the trigger on applying. We have certifiers that are out there ready, who have been building up their portfolio to be ready for this. And so I might not get certified in time is not an okay excuse. You've got to be proactively working the system. So we find that once we walk people through these 5 steps to certification, they start taking it much more seriously, that this isn't just, mailing in a cereal box with your $25 and calling it a day. This is a serious process that can take multiple months. So get started now. And then that's the core of our presentation. Again, we always like to end with our vision, which is organic integrity from farm to table. Consumers trust the organic label. That has been our vision statement now for about 12 years. And every once in a while, strategically, we revisit and we continue to come back to the point that, yep, that's our vision. And that is why we exist. And it's work that we continue to be proud of. And it's work that's never done. Compliance and enforcement work is never done. It will just keep on going. So that's the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing and see what kind of questions folks have.
Well, I have a question that actually came to me today, because we are a small farm, and we were getting some swag made to sell to our customers. And so I looked for organic cotton shirts and organic cotton hats and tote bags. And so I got, I worked with our local printer, and they could get Adidas organic hats. And, they didn't have them there, but they sent me everything from their distributor. And I read it, and it says certified organic cotton, yada, 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 the serial, the style number for it when you search around all the stuff online, right? So we just picked up the hats today, and nowhere on the hats does it say certified organic. So kind of my question is that Adidas is marketing these as organic cotton hats, but they're, and they have like their style number on it that is different and cost more than their non-organic hats, but nowhere anywhere on the label does it just says, cotton. It doesn't say any. So I believe they're not actually, organic cotton, because it should have that listed on the label, right?
Yeah, so it's not actually, it wouldn't be. That's a really good question. So the label on the actual product, it doesn't actually have to say that it is certified organic for it still to be certified, as it would be a question for Adidas as to whether the
Right,
cotton
but
in
it
the
doesn't
hat,
even,
the seal is
right, it
optional.
doesn't even say
Yeah,
organic.
not
No,
necessarily,
right.
no.
But oh, okay. So they could be using organic cotton, but not like,
Putting it
I
on
mean,
the
they're
label.
marketing it like, well, on the marketing, right? But it is not on the label of the hat.
Yeah, it might be. And so I'm going to just I'm going to put on my little regulatory hat here and what my compliance enforcement
Yeah.
team would say. They would say, well, actually, the cotton may well be certified organic, but what they couldn't find was organic dye. And if they used, if they put like, depending on what dye they put on the hat, they might have been worried about losing the status. Now, if it does say organic on it, the question would, does it say organic or just says cotton? The question would be, well, why wouldn't you say it's organic? That would be an interesting question for Adidas of why they don't choose to label it. But it's sort of like if you go into the grocery store and you buy an apple, those apples don't need to be individually labeled. The non-retail, the container needs to indicate that it's organic, and it needs to actually be organic.
Right.
But the actual product does not actually have to be labeled as organic specifically.
Interesting. Yeah, it just, when I picked them up today, and we had this meeting coming up, it just made me think of it, because I'm like, okay, Adidas is marketing this to
Right.
folks as organic at a wholesale level. But
Yeah.
then, like, if I were to try and sell the hat as organic, it doesn't say it anywhere on the hat. Right.
Yeah, so that
Anyway.
it would be, I mean, that's an interesting question to ask the seller. So, best case, it really is certified organic cotton, but they haven't labeled the individual product as being such, but they are losing, if it's a wholesaler, they're losing the opportunity for that to be resold as certified organic because it's not labeled. Worst case is they are false advertising, right? And where they're advertising it
Right.
as organic when it actually isn't, and hoping you don't notice when you get the hat. That would be something that I think if it were submitted as a complaint to us, we would want a picture of, so just as an example of how our team would work on that, you would submit a picture of the hat and a picture of the label on the hat, anything the hat says. You would include the marketing copy that you bought it from, any invoices that came with it, or any shipping labels. And so that kind of evidence can be helpful. We do have a compliance portal where people can submit complaints, including attachments. So those would be attachments. And then likely we would send an information letter to the seller, to the retailer saying, hey, be aware that we've received this complaint. Please explain your marketing and verify the organic status of the cotton. So I think our team would accept that as a complaint, but we would need kind of the evidence that would go along with it. And if they came back and said, well, actually, here's the evidence that it really is organic cotton, even though we've chosen not to label the end product as it, then they would be compliant, but they'd have to show evidence they were.
Okay. Yeah, I might just submit it, because I feel like I have like all of the paper trail of it. And it just made me think about, like, also how, like, for the, on a marketing level, like, what is the USDA doing to, like, you mentioned that there's the operations that are, saying that they're organic and they're not. how does that work with like larger operations or corporations like a clothing company that, you know,
Right.
would have a mix of organic and non-organic?
Yeah. Well, Adidas would need to be able to, if Adidas is selling it on their website, now I'm guessing a lot of money that Adidas is not themselves certified, right? But they're buying it from an entity. And they should be able to present the organic certificates of whoever it is that is creating that hat. It's also the other thing we would look on with that is what are they advertising? Are they just advertising that it's organic cotton that's making up the hat, that there's also pieces of plastic for the little thing and the Velcro isn't organic? If they're calling it an organic hat, that would be a problem. If they're just saying it's organic cotton in the hat, that would be allowed. So we do have a policy memo on textiles and its certification. And so we would want, if we were investigating that kind of case, we would ask, okay, where's the certificate for the manufacturer? Show us the evidence that that's certified. So I know we have April on. April, anything you would want to add as a certifier on that issue?
No, I think you really touched on it. I was thinking about the other components of the hat, and that would probably negate their ability to label it organic, other than saying organic cotton was used. But now you've got my curiosity piqued. I'll be looking at their marketing for these hats. We're always trying to find or source organic products. So
I will send it to you, April, because everything online markets it as organic cotton as a component. But the actual hat, the label, none of it says organic.
Yeah.
You know, anyway, it's interesting, but
yeah, it is. And these are the kinds of sort of policy questions we end up kind of struggling with and working with every day. One of the ways we've handled it is I'm drinking out of an organic water bottle. Clearly not organic, it's metal, but on it we have the seal, but we have above the seal it says National Organic Program to differentiate the fact that we're talking about the program versus using the seal itself. And so that was a policy decision we made on swag, that when it's clearly not on an organic thing, we don't want people sending us hate mail over that. So we put the program as the identifier. Yeah.
So I have a question. I always like to hear war stories. Can you give us the highlights of a recent case that involved maybe prison time or substantial civil penalties?
Yeah, so the biggest war stories right now tend to be the ones that are suspended operations that continue to sell as organic, or, and this happens in international contexts a lot, operations that get suspended, and in their country is pretty easy to go just set up another company. And it's the exact same people and it's the exact same operations. It's the exact same address, but it's a different company. So I have a separate certification now. And so I'm good. And those are the ones that are hardest. So we did collect a civil penalty from a guy who was running two businesses, one with a C and one with a K, but the name was almost identical. And one of them was suspended, but he was selling under the one with the other letter. And we said, yeah, no, you can't do that. These are identical companies. And in fact, we had a paper trails where he even acknowledged it was the same company. But getting him to guess on paying a civil penalty and stopping doing that, it took a lot of negotiation. I think one of our challenges is the great thing about the seal is it has federal protection. The challenge with the seal is federal protection is a whole lot of due process. And so for us trying to get cases resolved with a settlement agreement, actually a settlement agreement is the only way through which we can collect civil penalties. They have to agree to pay it, is the only mechanism we have, which takes a lot of negotiation time. Otherwise we have to go all the way to an administrative law judge for them to levy a fine, and that can take like a year or two, where they're violating and hurting the market for a year or two. So that one was particularly problematic. It did lead to a large civil penalty, though smaller than I would have liked, because we needed to basically get him to agree to pay it. The livestock cases are are scary. They are scary. And so they're war stories because they're scary, but you're literally talking about, and you can't write this in a decision, but in some cases, you're literally talking about cow laundering, where you have, an organic operation that is certified. They've got a certified pasture, they've got a certified handling facility. But then when you start to do the math and you look at all the cows that are getting sold out of those farms, the number of head being sold as organic, compared to the number of heads that are coming onto the property, and you start tracing back to where the businesses they're buying from, and you've got somebody who says they're a DBA for another business, but they're also running this business and that business and that business. The shell games are just unbelievable, and it really does appear to be done to purposely obfuscate what's happening in these business relationships. And unfortunately, I think in the early part of the organic community founding, when we were all getting used to the system, there were certificates that got issued where the certificate is for company A in Kansas, but it happens to also have on the certificate this ranch in, Nebraska, right? And well, it's all under the same management, so we'll just stick it under the same certificate. And unfortunately, that's caused a lot of problems of having multiple sites under one certificate, because it allows it to obfuscate it even more. So single site, single certificate to me is becoming even more important because of just the way people manipulate the system. And so it ended up being that if you read these appeal cases, it really shows that they were bringing in non-organic cows, putting them on this certified operation for a few weeks, and then selling them as organic slaughter. And that's why the traceability is so important. I think people got very hot and bothered, rightly, about the organic origin of livestock rule, but man, there are a lot bigger issues than what was covered by that rule that are already in the regs, but people were not necessarily going to that level of depth and doing the math. The ones where people went to prison were some of the grain cases. Animal feed is really hard because animal feed can last a long time. It can be moved in high volumes, and it's the same kind of shell game where people can take in very large volumes of grain into a certified operation and then resell it. And if you have an inspector that's not doing the math, the incoming math and the outcoming math, because math is hard and I don't have the time, and smart people can read the regulations, bad guys as well as good guys, and they can figure out how to get around that. So those are the scarier cases. We have a much bigger team now that is able to do the investigation needed, but it does take time. And unfortunately, during that time, we have fraud going on. And so our challenge now is how do we do that as fast as possible so that we have enough evidence to take action, but we're not spending so much time investigating that the market is irreparably hurt.
I have a follow-up question on that same question. The idea of responsibly connected, we're really excited to see how that's been further used in the strengthening organic enforcement role. And you were talking about how folks go and open up another business after being suspended. The challenge for certifiers is that the organic integrity database doesn't include people's names. So how are we to connect people to previous suspensions? And that's a real challenge. I'm curious if you have any perspectives on. And then I was also curious about where the money for civil penalties goes.
Oh, great question. Let me do the second one first, because that's easy. The civil penalties, the checks go to the Treasurer of the United States. It goes back into the general fund. It was decided, and I think this is good, that the act says the National Organic Program doesn't get the money because we didn't want there to be misaligned incentives. Well, you get to keep the money you collect. There are some agencies that are like that, where they fund themselves through enforcement action. Congress didn't want that to happen with organic. So actually, actually, it goes back to the general treasury, and then the general treasury can use it for whatever it wants, paying down the debt, paying for different types of programs. It's just considered money that the federal system can use. In terms of responsible parties, April, we're really struggling with that. And I think that's going to be one of the hardest questions on strengthening organic enforcement implementation. Here's the reality is the Organic Integrity Database lives on a federal server. It is a federal system, and therefore there are all sorts of Privacy Act considerations and business proprietary considerations. The great thing about the Organic Integrity Database is how public it is, that anyone in the public can go look up a certified operation and certifiers can feed data into it. The most horrible thing about the Organic Integrity Database is anyone in the public can go and look it up, and any certifier can provide data to the system. And that means that the thresholds for privacy and business proprietary information, it's an unbelievable delicate balance. So if we put responsible parties into the Organic Integrity Database, we wouldn't be able to make it available for certifiers to update. We would have to take away all your privileges because you don't work for the government, or we'd have to treat you as a federal government employee, and then you'd have to go in and get a link pass, and that's not going to work when we've got people around the world. So I don't know, April, and I think we've got to figure that out, and I don't think we're going to figure that out right away. I think that's the hardest part of the rule. So I think that's an area where I think ACA could probably help with that, but I don't know what the answer is. I do agree it's the biggest question. Success breeds new problems. That's the next big problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a million questions for you, Dr. Tucker, but instead I'm going to just share an observation that we were fortunate enough in Santa Cruz to have Stacey Abrams come and visit us and speak on Sunday night. And she is such a brilliant person, and she's got a variety of interests, and she's really interested in storytelling and problem solving. And I just wonder if you read her books and you just kind of, it seems to me like you're kindred spirits. So just wanted to share that.
Oh, that's very sweet. I don't know that much about her. I've never read one of her books, but now you've got me interested. So thanks for sharing that.
Any other questions for our speaker?
I mean, I'm
take
staffed.
it as a no. Go ahead.
So I hate to take up the time that, you know, members should be using, but I did have a question that's kind of lingering in my mind. I saw a recent communication from another organic kind of advocacy watchdog group that listed certifiers that were being issued non-compliances because they weren't willing to certify certain types of operations. And they were like, wow, these are the people who are really standing up for organic integrity. And so I was so I was wondering what the legal basis is for issuing non-compliances to those certifiers.
I appreciate the question. I appreciate the chance to set the record straight on that, because we consider that allegation false. And so I'm more than happy to share what we actually have done. And so we consider the question of whether a certifier certifies containers or hydroponics or any of the other ponics as a question of administrative capacity. And so if a certifier determines that it does not have the administrative capacity to certify hydroponics or container operations, of course we don't want them certifying those operations. I wouldn't want you certifying livestock if you didn't know anything about livestock. I don't want you doing things that are outside the scope of your capability. So if you choose as a certifier, if any certifier chooses not to develop the administrative capacity, meaning having appropriate staff with appropriate knowledge and skills do those systems, then don't do those systems, and be open that you're not certifying those systems. We issued two non-compliances, and it was way back in 2021. So, that this is now this big thing is we issued two non-compliances to certifiers in 2021 because their template documents said that hydroponic operations were illegal because of how the Organic Foods Production Act talks about soil. Now, that is an area that has been the subject of a lawsuit, and the lawsuit ultimately was resolved upholding the USDA's view that OFFA permits those types of systems. So we felt that it was misleading to say in a template document that's used for certification that something is foundationally illegal when that was actually under legal question at the time. So we asked them through a non-compliance to remove that statement. So we're not kicking out any certifiers. We're not taking sanctions. We pointed out through a non-compliance that language is misleading, and it is. We also believe that the policy space should stay separate from the certification space, and that in our mind, we can have all the policy debates we want to have, and we should in the standard space, but let's keep that in the policy space. And so when you start putting sort of legal interpretations of thinking something is illegal when that's working through the court system into certification documents, for us, that crossed the line. And so, yes, two certifiers got non-compliances for that. We've not kicked out anyone for that. We, again, want certifiers to exercise administrative capacity in the areas they feel qualified to do certification in. That's it. And I think that has been a very honest way of engaging with it. And I appreciate the question to be able to sort of talk about how we think about it, what those non-compliances were actually about.
Thank you.
Last call for questions.
For folks listening online,
Well,
thank you so much. I know you can't ask a question, but I appreciate the questions that have been asked on the screen. Those are a great range of questions.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jennifer Tucker. It's been an honor to have you at our at-large chapter meeting, and it was a really great presentation.
Great to be here today. Thank you for being here, and thanks for all the great work that all of you are doing every day out there to protect organic integrity. Thanks for inviting me to talk about it, and have a great rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
So I am just going to give a quick CCOF Board of Directors update. And in case people don't know who I am, I'm Andrea Davis-Cetina. I'm the owner of Quarter Acre Farm, and I'm the board rep for the at-large chapter. So since our last at-large chapter meeting, which was back in early November, I basically had like 3 meetings, so I'm going to kind of go backwards. At the last CCOF Board of Directors meeting, which was May 4th, we mainly the discussion was around a property search for purchase of a small office space and CCOF meeting space. CCOF has always leased or rented office space, so there's plans to buy. And also talked about celebration plans for CCOF's 50th anniversary, which is this year. And then discussion about a new marketing campaign from CCOF to educate customers about organics and just kind of overall marketing stuff. I also sit on the finance committee, and our last meeting for that was April 18th. And overall, CCOF is in very good financial shape with plenty of reserves and rainy day funds. And then during the November 17th Board of Directors meeting, an important motion was passed for our at-large chapter to allow us to create bylaws and also allow us to have incentive payments to the chapter, which all other chapters currently have. And we, when our chapter was formed, it was missing that component. So basically it means that we have some funds for our chapter that we can use how we see fit as chapter members. And it is just, like I said, the way that other chapters have always been set up. So now that large chapter is more on an equal setting compared to the other chapters. So if anyone has questions for me, go ahead and ask them. But that is the end of my quick little update. All right, so I'm going to pass over the baton to Jane to give more of an update from CCOF.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. Let me pull up my slides here, share them with y'all. Okie dokie. We've got quite a bit going on in organic policy work, both at the California state level and at the national level. And of course, in this presentation, I'm going to focus on our national policy work, mostly around the Farm Bill. And also the Organic Transition Program. And I kind of wish that Dr. Tucker was still here. I mean, she's got more important things to do than watch my slides. But I did want to just kind of, acknowledge this huge organic transition initiative. But first of all, I just wanted to provide this overview of my comments. The policy work that CCOF engages with our policy team, the majority of it is in response to member needs, to issues, to regulatory concerns, or other kinds of issues that our members bring to us. And some of you probably are aware that with the pandemic and kind of the challenges in national and international supply chains, there has been difficulty in, and also with the drought here in California and in other Western states, there's been a lot of challenges acquiring sufficient organic feedstuffs like grains and feeds. And that has resulted in real challenges for organic dairies. So I'll describe that. There is a federal program right now that's offering support to organic dairies. CCOF also has a labor survey out because we're gathering our members' input on their labor needs in order to develop CCOF's position on labor. And this is kind of something that's been a long time coming. I'm going to spend the majority of my time going over the elements of USDA's Organic Transition Initiative. This is an unprecedented $300 million investment into organic by USDA. And I may have even mentioned it to the group last November when we last met, because it was just being announced at that time. And now we have a lot more details about the different elements of it. There's a mentoring and advice element, direct farmer assistance, and pinpointed organic market development. And some of these actually have open calls for applications right now, which I'll explain. And then Farm Bill 2023 is the main focus of our federal policy work at the moment. So support for organic dairies. Currently, we do have this USDA Organic Dairy Marketing Assistance Program open for applications. They're due July 24th. There's $104 million available to organic dairy operations. The way it's been put together is that it's through an agency of USDA that is more about marketing. So I actually would like to credit USDA. They're being very creative in coming up with different funding streams for these organic programs. But that means that kind of they're couching it as assistance for marketing costs. But evidently those marketing costs can also be considered like transportation costs and those sorts of things. So this is available for organic cow, goat, and sheep dairy operations. And then there's information about how the payment will be calculated, basically on based on the level of production, up to 5 million pounds of organic milk per operation. So I don't know that any of you are involved with organic dairy, but you may know some organic dairy producers. I know you have some in Maryland that would be interested in this program. And my coworker, Leticia Benador, she's really like found her niche in working on organic livestock issues. And so I always refer people with concerns or questions about livestock to contact her. And our labor survey, again, we are creating a public position on labor, and we are soliciting input from our members. So my coworker, Jessica Gonzalez, is gathering that input. And if you're interested in participating in that survey, contact her. You can also look at our website. I believe there's a link in a previously published blog. And just to make a plug for that blog, CCOF publishes an e-newsletter every Wednesday morning. And that's one of the key ways that we inform our members on policy and other issues. So yeah, I encourage people to read that e-newsletter. Okay, the big organic transition initiative. Mentoring advice and advice element of this massive initiative is in the form of this Transition to Organic Partnership Program. And CCOF is the lead for the Southwestern region. So we're working with nonprofits and extension personnel and technical service providers in 7 states in the West and Southwest, and including Hawaii. And then, so each of these regions has a lead, which is the primary nonprofit organic certification, accredited certification agency in that region. So this is just a map showing all of the different entities that are involved in the different regions that the country's been divided into for purposes of this Transition to Organic Partnership Program. And just to zoom in a little closer, CCOF is working with partners in these 7 states to create technical assistance. We've got, sorry, this is, I should have updated this, this slide. We have NGO and public institution partners in the state of California. And one of the most exciting things is that, especially for existing organic operations, is that CCOF is going to be launching a farmer-to-farmer mentorship program this fall, which will actually pay our certified organic producers to work with new transitioning organic producers to help them make a successful transition. And our new foundation staff, Molly Nakahara, is running this program. So there's her contact information, mnakahara@ccof.org. This is a great opportunity. I think it'll be really fascinating to see how this works out. In terms of direct farmer assistance, the National Resources Conservation Service, which manages all of these conservation payment programs, is hiring regional organic experts around the country. You know, a lot of times, and I've heard this from people like you, Andrea, is that the staff aren't necessarily aware of the organic standards. They don't know about special requirements organic farms have. So it'll be really great for them to have this organic expertise on staff. There's a transitional organic grower assistance program that's going to assist new organic growers in acquiring crop insurance, for better or for worse. We've also heard that organic crop insurance is not perfect, but we do know that USDA is continually trying to improve it. There is a new Natural Resources Conservation Service organic practice standard in EQIP, which is one of their hallmark conservation funding programs, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. And that actually will pay operations to implement certain practices that are considered collectively to be the organic practice standard. And that just like identifies these set of standards that are like a systems approach to production, which organic is. And then specifically, NRCS now has this organic transition support program open for applications by June 15th, so it's coming up pretty soon, for farmers, ranchers, forest landowners, and other producers beginning or in the process of transitioning to organic certification. I did have a question that I've not yet been able to get an answer to, is if this is open to existing organic farmers who want to transition new acreage in. So I think it's definitely worth, if you're in that situation, it's definitely worth reaching out to your local NRCS information center. They're all across the country. Most counties have an NRCS office located there. And those are the people to talk to find out if you would be eligible for that program. And then the third element is pinpointed organic market development. And in my opinion, this is a really crucial part of the Organic Transition Initiative, because if we're going to have a lot of new people entering organic, we're going to have some place for their products to go. We're going to have enhanced markets to be able to absorb and accommodate and maintain the premium price that our organic producers earn and deservedly sell. So there's currently this huge grant program open for applications. $75 million are available for these organic market development grants that are aimed at resolving bottlenecks in certified organic processing, storage, specialized equipment, and handling shipping. So they have identified specific priorities in this program that have been, and I found out that these priorities were identified by kind of a public input. They had listening sessions across the country to find out what were the main organic market priorities that people had. So these are the ones that they've identified: organic grains and livestock feed, organic dairy, fibers, organic legumes and other rotational crops, and organic ingredients currently unavailable in commercial form. So one could put together a proposal that's not focused on one of these priorities, but it wouldn't necessarily score as well as one that is squarely addressing these priorities. And I'm on now. So there are 3 project types. One is marketing, development, promotion. Those grants range in from $100,000 to $3 million that one could apply for. Processing capacity expansion, again, $100,000 to $3 million. And special purpose equipment up to $100,000. So if you needed a refrigerated truck, or some kind of processing equipment or delivery equipment, you could apply for up to $100,000 to purchase that equipment if it's addressed at resolving some of those marketing bottlenecks. Businesses are eligible to apply, which includes farms and ranches. One of the challenges, and I kind of, for me, it kind of reduces my enthusiasm when there's such a significant match is required. This one requires 50% match or 25% from, quote, underserved producers. But on the other hand, there's a lot of ways that people can demonstrate that they're meeting that match requirement primarily through their own labor efforts. And these proposals are due August 8th. They're fairly intensive proposals, but if anybody is interested and has an idea of something that they might want to apply for, CCOF does have a grant writer that we've hired to work with some of our members to develop some of these proposals. So if you're interested, follow up with me and I'll put you in touch with that grant writer. Okay, so Farm Bill 2023. Y'all probably know that the Farm Bill is the nation's vehicle for food and agriculture policy. This is a very large, what they call an omnibus bill. It's got a number of different sections in it, and it basically sets out which programs are going to be funded for the next 5 years. So CCOF advocates for organic priorities. We've been doing some grassroots organizing here in the state of California, reaching out to our elected representatives. We just sent a letter to one of our congressmen yesterday that was signed by members at a chapter meeting last week, asking him to sign on as a co-author of these 4 marker bills that carry organic priorities into the Farm Bill. Marker bills are bills that are introduced for the purpose of being incorporated into a larger bill. So it's not, the Opportunities in Organic Act, for instance, is not intended to be passed as a standalone bill. It's intended to bring forward concepts that will then be part of the Farm Bill. When people are introducing these marker bills and kind of advocating that they be brought into the Farm Bill, they like to have bipartisan support. So we're always looking for CCOF members who are located in whatever district, whoever your congressperson is, they very well could be somebody that we'd want to have sign on as a co-author or a supporter of one of these marker bills. There are 4 primary marker bills that we're tracking right now and that we've signed on as supporters and are actively advocating for congresspeople to support. The Opportunities in Organic Act has a number of different elements, including increasing cost share at $1,500 per scope. And that's consistent with CCOF's position on cost share. Certification cost share is probably the #1 organic priority that we're advocating for in the Farm Bill. Just a note that certification cost share is open for applications right now. And I don't know if you or all of yours, I believe, Laura, you're located in New Mexico, right? I'm not sure if your State Department of Agriculture is administering cost share, but your FSA, the USDA Farm Service Agency.
Yeah, FSA does it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So FSA is currently accepting applications for cost share, and we encourage everybody, as soon as you've paid your certification fees and your inspection fees, that you go ahead and apply for certification cost share in order to get it, because there's just a certain amount of money, and we do know that here in California, at least, the funding is completely expended every year. So it's kind of a first come, first serve thing.
And what's the deadline on that? I know I always
Not till the end of October.
end of October. Okay, yeah, because my inspection usually happens later in the year. So
okay, yeah. Well, there's plenty of time, but
yeah,
and we're just starting. CCOF mounts a huge effort every year to support our members in applying for cost share, and so so we're just beginning this messaging.
Yep.
Strengthening the Local Processing Act. That is a bill that's offers support for small and local meat processors. This has been identified as a key bottleneck in making local organic meat available to consumers. The Agricultural Resilience Act really has a lot of detail about how agriculture is a climate solution, and has a number of different elements in it that is supportive of organic. And the Strengthening Organic Research Act will increase organic research funding. So Farm Bill 2023, in addition to reaching out to your elected representative, the National Organic Coalition just this morning sent out an action alert about an opportunity to weigh in with the it's the Ag Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives, I believe, is soliciting input on the Farm Bill through Friday, June 9th. And the National Organic Coalition has put it together in the form of a nice action alert that you can just follow and fill in your information, and it'll automatically be sent to to the Ag Committee. So I'm Jane Sooby. Maybe I should have introduced myself in the beginning, but I am the chapter liaison. My job now is to work more hands-on, do more hands-on work with CCOF members in addressing their concerns. So if ever you have a question or concern about regulations, production, processing, marketing, or anything that is kind of an obstacle to you, feel free to contact me anytime. There's my email address and my phone number. And I really thank you. You producers are the heart and soul of organic, and you're the ones that make this whole organic movement a force for good in the world. So yeah, thank you.
So are there any questions for Jane before we move on to April? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. So April, why don't you go ahead and give your update?
Let me just... Can you all see my screen? Wonderful. I'm April Vasquez. I'm the Chief Certification Officer at CCOF, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to be here today. I'd love to just start off sharing our mission. Our mission is to advance organic agriculture for a healthy world. We accomplish our purpose through organic certification, education, advocacy, and promotion, and we envision a world where organic is the norm. I wanted to highlight the various programs CCOF is now offering in our suite of certifications. Our USDA National Organic Program obviously is our main program, and we currently have over 4,200 members in that program with more than 3 million acres certified organic. I just want to take a moment to think about that and reflect on it and say thank you for all the work that you're doing to help us make organic the norm. Our Mexico compliance program, we have 323 members in both in Mexico and the US, and this is certification to the Mexico organic standards. And then we have a growing food safety program with over 200 members enrolled. We're offering the Global Gap and Primus food safety certifications. So if you're interested in food safety certification and bundled inspections where you have your organic and food safety at the same time, and you're not working with CCOF, please reach out and talk with our food safety experts. We are also offering Regenerative Organic Certified, which is a pilot program for CCOF. We launched the program last year, and we are actually now at the evaluation period where we are evaluating the value of the program, and we'll be making a recommendation to the board of directors in August about whether we should continue to offer the program. We have 50 members enrolled at this point, which was our goal. So that feels like a great milestone. We've sent out surveys to all the chapter leadership and governance members, and we just are really looking to get member feedback. So if you have feedback, even if you're not in chapter leadership, we would welcome your input on this program. And then we have various other programs that aren't included on this slide. Our international programs, our GMA program for all the equivalencies with other countries, our Canadian Organic Regime or CORE program. And then we also have a grass-fed organic program and an OCal cannabis program, just based in California. So lots going on. I wanted to highlight, this was a certain news that went out. Canada and Mexico signed a memorandum of understanding that recognizes the two regulatory systems as equivalent. This is the first equivalency that Mexico has signed with another country. It doesn't change anything. Operations in Mexico enrolled in our GMA program are still able to export NOP products to Canada with their GMA certificate. And this arrangement does not apply to organic products produced in the United States. The arrangement was set up for a 1-year kind of pilot phase, and they will reevaluate whether they want to sign a more longer term equivalency next year. Strengthening organic enforcement. I came to your last chapter meeting, which I think was at the end of last year in December, and said, this is coming. Well, it's here. And we are working really hard to prepare for implementation. The regulations require compliance by March 19th, 2024. So that's just about 9 months away. These are kind of the various pieces of the regulation that I think are really important to know about. Standardized NOP certificates. So CCOF will no longer be just issuing out of our database. They need to actually come out of the Organic Integrity Database. That's the database that the National Organic Program maintains that Jenny was speaking about earlier today. This regulation brings increased record keeping and traceability in order to prevent fraud. There's more stringent mass balance audit requirements. It also requires import certificates for all organic products entering the US, and importers must be certified and maintain all import certificate documents. Removing exemptions. Operations previously exempt will need to be certified. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. This includes brokers, traders, private label owners, storage facilities, and transloaders. There's a whole lot more in the regulation that's not on this slide. CCOF is working to share out educational pieces. We'll be sending cert news, hopefully have some videos on our YouTube channel to kind of walk producers through what the changes are and what you all need to be thinking about as you are getting ready for this big change. And speaking of, there will be an email coming out next week from CCOF to all producers. And this is going to highlight one of the big pieces of the regulation, and that is the removal of a lot of exemptions. So many uncertified operations are going to need to obtain certification. So an email is going to go out with this beautiful self-assessment tool. It's a flow chart. And we're asking that you all share these with the producers that you work with so that they can assess whether they need to obtain certification or not. And that will include folks you work with through the uncertified handler affidavit, storage facilities, private label brand owners, brokers, traders, wholesales, distributors, exporters, transporters, transloaders, and more. So if you're working with anyone who is not certified, we ask that you please share this self-assessment flowchart so that they can take a look and see whether they need to get certified. We're asking that you do this and respond to us by August 1st. If you don't work with anybody who's uncertified, you can simply just let us know that. And then by the end of 2023, we need operations to be applying for certification if not exempt. Like Jenny was talking about, it takes some time to get certified, and we want to make sure that we have capacity to manage the influx of applicants and that people are able to get certified by that deadline of March 19th, 2024. I wanted to highlight some of the pieces for growers that are really important, and this also went out in a cert news recently. Strengthening organic enforcement requires all storage facilities handling unpacked organic products to be certified. So what does that mean exactly? Storage facilities that handle sealed, tamper-evident organic products will be allowed to remain exempt, but it's for those not enclosed packages. So what does sealed, tamper-evident packaging mean? We have a list of things here. A clamshell with a sticker closing the clamshell. You can't be able to pop it open easily. Plastic containers with film top that is fully sealed, and you have to rip it to get it open. It can have air holes for airflow or flow, exactly. but it has to be sealed. You can't get to the product. Mesh bags that seals the bags, plastic bags tied with stickers. So I have this picture here to kind of show you this would be unpacked, and this, if there's a sticker on that clamshell, would qualify as sealed, tamper evident packaging. Another piece that's going to impact growers of the new regulation is non-retail containers. So the new regulation requires that the non-retail packaging identifies the product as organic. This was not a requirement in the past. So all of your boxes, all of your wholesale containers will need to say organic, and they'll need to display the lot number or shipping identification that can link that container to audit trail documentation. And that audit trail documentation must identify the last certified operation that handled the organic product. We are offering some discounts. If you do work with producers who were previously exempt, let them know. The sooner they get their application in, the greater their discount will be. And you can see that here. Right now, until the end of the month, we are offering that new application for $100. It's normally $325, so it's a pretty substantial discount. And then that discount lessens as time goes on. This is our incentive to get folks into the certification process sooner. And there's the information here for our applicant support team if you want to pass that on as well. And that is my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
I do kind of. So our pecan growers, we harvest our pecans, put them in great big boxes. So each of those boxes, when we transport them directly from the field to a certified cleaning plant. They check the boxes in. Do the boxes all need to have a unique identifier to go from the field to the cleaner? Once they're at the cleaner, they get unique identifiers by weight and name and farm and things like that.
Is the cleaning facility under your certification?
No,
It's a separate entity.
Separate one. It's through you guys, but all of the little pecan farmers in our area use the same place because he's the only certified facility.
Because it's still part of the processing and it's not a wholesale box intended for sale. My interpretation is that no, you would not need that unique identifier until after they've been processed and they're ready for sale.
Because they get labeled with the farm's name and with the farmer's name, organic. We check in, like if the farmer delivers 3 boxes, the cleaner marks that there are 3 boxes present. And then they have their own little paper trail that's always passed muster with the inspectors. So
that sounds sufficient.
Okay, yeah, well, I have to stay on these guys to label their harvest boxes. So yeah, gotcha. Okay, that works.
Thank you.
It's been a stressor for these guys, so yeah.
Any other questions for April?
Well, I actually have
any questions in general?
A question for you, Andrea and Joe and Laura, is from what April just presented, especially with the bin labeling out in the field, is that going to pose a challenge to you? Do you foresee that being an issue? No, Joe. Okay, good.
I think it'll be a matter of me talking to the other little pecan growers that I buy from to make sure that they're labeling their boxes. I mean, some of these guys only have one harvest box. I mean, these are tiny little farms sometimes that have a box. So I think just getting them to walk out there and put a label on it is going to be important. Our labels, once they leave the cleaner, I buy them there, and then it becomes my responsibility to make sure that they're labeled. And I think working with CCOF in the past, all of the cleaned pecans have a farm name, the date that they were cleaned, and then each individual bag's weight. And the chances of these big bags having the exact same weight are minuscule. So they've always accepted that unique weight with that bag, because I get a whole list. Like when I check all the bags out of the truck, I mark them off by weight. I match the label to the weight and to my checkoff list, and that's always passed muster. So hopefully that doesn't change. So yeah. And I try to take pictures of all of that and make sure that, you know, the farmers that need it for their documents, once I buy the pecans, that I have photographs and examples and things like that I can use. So, yeah.
I was just going to share that I feel like that's one of the biggest concerns, is the small producers having the means to meet these regulations, and pondering whether it was the intent to put that burden on the small producer. But CCOF is not here to be prescriptive and say you have to do it a certain way, and we will absolutely try to find ways to work within your systems, like what you suggested, to find those unique identifiers so you don't have to revamp everything that you're already doing.
Yeah, and that was good because the cleaner, we're such a small, I mean, the little handful of pecan growers is such a small percentage of his business, that for him to come up with an entirely new system of labeling things, that's just, we're maybe, I wouldn't even think we're 5% of his business. You know, we were running the risk of him saying, well, you know, then I won't clean for the organic folks anymore, and then we would be completely out of business. So I think the fact that you all were being able to be flexible with that was very, very helpful. So he's certified out of basically the kindness of his heart. So yeah. Yeah. But that's all.
Great. Any other questions or comments before we wrap up this meeting?
Can I ask one more question about the uncertified handlers? So if our pecans go to a cold storage facility, they're already boxed, they're palletized, they're stretch wrapped, my sort of tamper resistant, I guess, device is that they're vacuum packed inside a box. So you can't necessarily see if there was any tampering until you opened the box. But would that work? It didn't really fit in on the list of examples that was given earlier.
Vacuum sealed bags are absolutely tamper evident.
Oh, yeah, they are. I can tell when they run a
I should add that to the list.
I was gonna say, I can tell when they run a forklift through one of them, because that's usually how they get broken. So
well, I just wanted to jump in and really thank Andrea and Joe again for pulling this meeting together, and really hoping that we get a lot of hits when we post it online. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks, Jane, for all your support on the CCOF end of it, and Joe for tracking down the speaker, and April for your presentation as well. And Laura, thanks for showing up to all of our meetings, because we really appreciate your input, being from New Mexico and a pecan producer. And that is going to be it for our at-large chapter meeting this June, and we hope to do another meeting this year, probably in the late fall when people are a little less busy. But thanks so much, everybody, and we appreciate all of the staff and the members. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.
Bye.